Good morning. I'm Gord Long with Financial Repression Authority. As part of our ongoing series on financial repression, I have Peter Schiff joining us this morning from Euro Pacific Capital. Welcome, Peter.
Thanks for having me on your program.
Peter, it really is a pleasure to have you. I've been looking forward to talking to you for a while. Peter, most people are very familiar with yourself. You're very evident in all of the media. But for those that aren't, could you just give people a little bit of a background detail on your background?
Sure. I've been in the investment business my entire life. I started with Schiff and Lehman, eventually formed my own broker-dealer, Euro Pacific Capital, in the mid-90s, and made a name for myself by being one of the only people to vocally forecast the financial crisis of 2008. I've authored 3 New York Times best-selling books. I now have an asset management company in addition to my broker-dealer. I have a Canadian broker-dealer. I own a precious metals company, and most recently, an offshore bank, Euro Pacific Bank.
And I'll concur that, Peter, you were the one that was most vocal in 2007 about what was coming. You had your neck out a long ways, and we're right there. So, Peter, this is part of a series on financial repression, and before I get into a real discussion on the Euro Pacific Bank, can you define it in your words, what it means to you, concerns, observations?
Well, governments find all sorts of ways of repressing their citizens, and they certainly do it through the banking system. Now in America today, when you have a bank account, you have no privacy anymore. Your banker is basically a unpaid spy working for the government, trying to monitor your activities, looking for anything suspicious so that they can turn you in to the government. Of course, inflation is a form of repression. If you save the fiat currency that the government creates, it's going to lose value over time as it orchestrates a deliberate plan of depreciation of the medium of exchange. And so you have continuous inflation. And then, of course, to the extent that you earn any money, the government represses you by seizing a good portion of it with the income tax or the inheritance tax or the payroll tax. So there's all sorts of ways that the government seeks to repress us.
Well, one of the legislation that's come through are bank bailins, sprung from the Cyprus crisis. We've seen it in discussions in terms of what's going on in Greece. We now have it legislated in some of the, legislated here in the United States. But between it and a lot more movement to a cashless society, can you make any comments on either one of those?
Well, bail-ins are a function of the government deposit schemes, which really don't work. And when these government-insured banks fail, rather than having to, just create a lot of money, they will resort to the bail-in where they, dispense the losses among depositors, which is actually the right thing to do. We shouldn't have any government insurance for bank deposits. I mean, if you deposit your money in a bank and that bank fails, your deposits should be at risk. And in fact, if we had deposits at risk, we would have a much sounder banking system like the one that we had before the invention of deposit insurance under Roosevelt. And not all countries have these deposit insurance schemes, and the ones that don't have healthier banking institutions, because now you have the market forces reining in risky banking activity. Because when people have to assume the risk of their deposits, they do their homework, and banks compete with one another based on safety. But when the government abrogates that, when the government tells everybody, hey, it doesn't matter where you put your money, it doesn't matter which bank you use, because if anything goes wrong, the government's got you covered, nobody cares. Nobody does any research. It doesn't matter where your money is. And the banks know this. The banks know that the depositors couldn't care less how risky the bank is. All they care about is the services and the interest rates. So banks do all sorts of risky things and reckless things that they never would do outside the moral hazard created by government with the deposit insurance.
It's amazing, unintended consequences. Things start as a good idea, but often, in more cases than not, lead to misuse and problems. And there's a good example with FDIC in the long term. Peter, one of the things that we wanted to make sure we had enough time to talk about is Bitcoin as a structure, cryptocurrencies. And actually some of the exciting things that I think you were indicating are coming with Euro Pacific Bank. Could you to give our listeners kind of a background and a positioning there?
Sure. Well, first of all, Bitcoin, people are looking for an alternative to the fiat currencies being created by government. And people were attracted, I believe, to Bitcoin because they thought they had found an alternative. I don't think Bitcoin is going to work. I compared it to a pyramid or a Ponzi scheme when it first grew to attention, when the prices skyrocketed upwards of $1,000 per Bitcoin. As we're recording this interview, they're barely above $200. And I think the price is going to continue to go lower, which is going to erode away the appeal, because the fatal flaw in Bitcoin is that there's no real intrinsic value there. There's nothing behind it, like when you have gold. But people find it, cumbersome. Hey, how do I spend my gold? It's very easy to spend a Bitcoin, but how do I spend gold? Well, I solved that problem a few years ago at my bank. When I launched Euro Pacific Bank, which, by the way, is a 100% reserve bank, we don't make any loans. We simply charge fees for our services. And one of the services that we provide is gold and silver backed accounts, where my customers have access to their gold and silver 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, through a prepaid debit card, where you can interact with the fiat world. You can take your card anywhere they take MasterCard or Visa, and you can spend it, and you're literally spending your gold. Now, right now, it's a prepaid card, so there's a two-step process, right? Where if somebody, let's say, has $10,000 worth of gold at my bank, and they want to buy something for $100, first they need to log into their account. They need to sell $100 worth of gold to load their debit card, and now they can spend the $100. Now, I ultimately wanted a one-step process, and that's what's coming. But another company started up in Canada, BitGold, to basically copy what I was doing. They're now offering the same type of prepaid debit card that I've been offering for 3 years. Now, they pretend that what they're doing is new, but it's not new, because they're simply copying what I've been doing all along. But what I'm going to be doing, and this change is probably going to take place within the next 30 to 60 days, is we're going to have the first true gold-backed debit card. I mean, I was the first to issue the prepaid card, but now I'm going to be the first financial institution to offer a true gold-backed debit card. And the way this will work is, if you have $10,000 worth of gold at my bank and you want to buy something for $100, just use your debit card. And the minute you use your debit card, $100 worth of gold will automatically be sold to cover that transaction in real time at the market price of gold at the time you swipe that card. Now, there's no other company, financial institution or otherwise, that is going to be able to offer that, where you actually can spend your gold as easily as you can spend your dollars or your euros or your yen. But, the real benefit of the gold-backed debit card. Look, I've been offering these gold-backed debit cards for years. My bank customers don't want to spend their gold. They want to spend their dollars or their euros or their pounds. They want to save their gold. The idea is that you can carry your gold around in your wallet. So if one of my bank customers, let's say somebody buys $50,000 worth of gold from me, and they have my debit card, they have that $50,000 worth of gold purchasing power in their wallet. They can tap into it whenever they want, but why would they want to? If they also have dollars or euros, you would spend that. And of course, my bank customers can have multiple debit cards. They can have dollar accounts, euro account, pound accounts, and gold accounts. And they can spend whatever they want to spend and save what they want to save. See, the key is to save your gold, because it's going to hold on to its value, and spend your fiat currency first. Now, eventually, when we have a currency crisis, yes, you can tap into your gold at that point when it's a lot more valuable and start to spend it. But, a company like BitGold, they've got all these, I guess, pie-in-the-sky revenue assumptions or profit assumptions, because they believe that one day they're going to make a lot of money, because people are going to be, buying and selling gold constantly, because they're going to be somehow they're going to be using their gold to buy a cup of coffee. They're not going to do that. The problem with BitGold is that they're giving away all this free gold to their customers, which is great. You open up an account, they give you $10, $20 worth of free gold, and if you refer somebody, you get free gold for doing that. I mean, they've got 100,000 plus customers with an average of $40 or $50 worth of gold. That's not a viable business. I think the question is, how much money is BitGold going to be able to lose before it can't sell any more stock? Because right now their business model is to give away free gold and sell stock, overpriced stock, to investors who have no idea that this business model is not going to work. I mean, I like what they're trying to do because they're simply copying what I've already done. And they're also trying to add another level, which is trying to be like a PayPal, where people can use gold and actually pay it to one another. And I already thought of that, and I'm going to ultimately launch that service. But right now, that's not what people want. I mean, most merchants don't want to be paid in gold, at least not yet, because their landlord doesn't want gold. They got to pay their rent. Their employees don't want to get paid in gold. So it's much better for you to keep your gold, but pay for things with dollars or euros or yen, and that's what you get with my debit card, because you have your gold, but when you go into a store, the merchant, as far as he's concerned, you're no different than any other customer who's spending dollars or euros, because that's what he receives in payment for his merchandise. But you're actually paying in gold, but the counterparty gets the currency that he wants. The benefit to my customers is that your savings are kept in a money that's not going to lose value, that will maintain its value over time. And you have this instant liquidity that you don't necessarily have when you have a bar of gold in your basement, because now if you want to turn it into cash, you've got to sell it. You've got to wait for the cash, and of course you have to sell the whole bar. You can't really sell a little chip of it. Whereas with me at my bank, if you've got $10,000 worth of gold and you want to spend $50 worth of it, you can do it. It's very practical and very convenient. It's as easy as swiping your MasterCard.
Peter, what I'm hearing you saying is you're actually giving the vendors or users the opportunity to be quite diversified. If you want to buy something and you don't want to use your gold, use one of the regular currencies, whatever currency you're going to want to use. But if there's a crisis or there's serious problems and you need access to your gold or want to spend it on gold, you can do it. Now, you said your credit cards could have it in multiple currencies. As you mentioned, pound, euro, yen. Are there any limitations on the number of currencies of credit cards they can have? And are there any restrictions for Americans in using the Euro-Pacific Bank?
Yeah, we don't have currencies in every currency that exists, but we have the major currencies, and sure, you can have debit cards in various currencies depending on how much you travel. I mean, that's the benefit, because if, let's say you have a pound card and you travel to the United States, well, you've got pounds in your account. To the extent that you buy things in dollars, then you're going to have a foreign exchange transaction every time you use your debit card. That's going to add a layer of costs. But if you also have a dollar-based debit card, then when you travel to the States, you could use your dollar-based card when you're in America. Just use your pound card when you're in the UK, and you'll minimize your costs that way. And you can have a euro card, you can have a yen card, and then you can have a gold card. You can have as many cards as you want to keep in your wallet to minimize your expenses. But most people, they're probably not traveling as much, and maybe they just need two cards, one for their gold and one for the fiat currency where they live, and that's the one they're going to use most often. As far as Americans, unfortunately, Americans cannot have accounts at Euro-Pacific Bank, and so they cannot avail themselves of my platform. I mean, they can go to the BitGold platform. They will allow Americans to have a bank account, but I don't think they're giving them debit cards yet. I don't think they've made that service available. So it really doesn't make a difference. It doesn't. I mean, there's no reason to have the account. I guess you can get your free gold, but beyond that, you have to pay for it. And I would rather have the gold stored locally than just have it stored in their depository.
But except for Americans, because a large number of our audience are all around the world, are there any other countries that really are restricted?
No, just the United States. I mean, the United States. Which is not
unusual, by the way.
Yeah, look, we are a bank, we're a full bank. We provide all the services of a bank. We do third-party wires, And we have a subsidiary, a brokerage subsidiary, so my customers can also buy stocks and bonds. They can trade foreign exchange. They can trade options. So you can do all this under one roof. But of course, you can move your stock proceeds into gold. You can use your gold to buy stock if you want to do that. I mean, it's a full banking and brokerage platform that you can base in gold, because our new software that we're writing for our bank is going to treat gold just like any other currency. So the bank is going to look at gold the same way that it would look at euros or yen or dollars as an alternative. And so we can denominate our transactions in that currency. See, BitGold isn't able to do that. That's why BitGold's debit card, won't recognize that you have, gold in your account. You have to sell the gold and load up your prepaid card. That's what my cards have been like for the last few years, but my new software solves this problem, because when you go to use your debit card, my bank will see that gold as spendable money in your account. And you could directly draw down that gold when you spend it in real time. So you don't have to leave any money in cash if you don't want to. I mean, ultimately, if we have a real currency crisis, if inflation is breaking out all around the world, people aren't going to want to hold money in fiat currencies. They're going to want to keep it in gold until they spend it, right? And then my bank will be the only one that offers that.
Exactly, Peter. I can't think of anybody that's even close to doing that. And with what we're seeing with financial repression, debasements of currencies, we think there's probably a currency crisis on the horizon at some point. We're already seeing evidence of that. Your services could be incredibly powerful in protecting people's storage.
Yeah. And we also have an affiliate program. Maybe BitGold copied that as well. I mean, we do, and Americans could take advantage of this too. If you refer people to my bank, we don't give people free gold. I mean, it actually costs money to open up an account with my bank. I mean, I'm trying to make a profit. I'm not selling stock, but we do pay $50 referral fees to people who refer us people who open up gold debit cards, because there is actually a fee. We actually have to charge money when people get a debit card, and there are annual fees. BitGold waives all these fees, but that means that their shareholders are absorbing the losses, because I actually have to pay money. They don't give out debit cards for nothing. There's actually a cost, and so we pass on that cost to our customers, because I'm an actual business. I'm not in business to lose money, because I don't sell stock to investors. I own the company, so I want to operate at a profit. But I think I provide services above and beyond what anybody else does. So there's an old expression, you get what you pay for, and you get a lot for what you pay for from my bank, and at least the bank is going to be there, because the most important thing is you want to do business with a profitable company, because the profits will mean that the entity is viable and is going to be there for the long term. We have a lot of net capital behind the bank. We don't make any loans, but if you're dependent on constantly raising new money from investors to replenish the money you blew trying to get customers, because you lose money on every customer, it's not a long-term business model.
Peter, we're up against our hard line. I really appreciate the time you've taken. Any clear messages you'd like to leave with our listeners, and how could they learn more about these offerings?
Well, certainly if you want to learn about Euro Pacific Bank, any of the opportunities there, and by the way, we have lots of employment opportunities. The bank is growing rapidly. We need experienced investment sales professionals. We need people for customer support, salaried positions, commission positions. We are hiring, so you can go to careers at Euro Pacific Bank. When you go to my website, it's europacbank.com. You can be an American citizen and work for the bank. You just can't live in America. So you have to work outside the U.S. in order to be employed by the bank, but you can be an American. But if you're not an American and you're looking for a bank, you want to find out about our banking services, our gold and silver debit cards, our brokerage platform, our managed accounts, you just go to the bank's website at europacbank.com. If you are europacbank.com. If you're an American citizen, you want to work with me, you got to go to my U.S. brokerage site, my U.S. website, Euro Pacific Capital. It's europac.com. EUROPAC.com is my U.S. broker dealer. Europacbank.com is for the offshore bank.
Peter, thank you very much for the time. I appreciate it, and we'll have to have you back.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.